Well, blessings to you on this Wednesday as we come to you with your daily encouragement. Just as a reminder to the people of East and Central, we have our Lenten services, and they will be continuing this coming Wednesday. So come and join us at 6:30. We're going to be at Central this time, and we're going to hear the story of Simon and Matthew, Simon Peter specifically, and Matthew. So guess who gets to play Matthew in this one today? It will be kind of fun. But we're in Genesis chapter 14, and we're going to be beginning with verse 17. So we got some interesting things for us to look at. And so in verse 17 of Genesis 14, it says, after his return from the defeat of the Calamor and the kings who were with him, the king of Sodom went out to meet him at the valley of Sheba, that is the king's valley. And King Melchizedek of Salem brought out bread and wine. He was the priest of the God Most High. Now, we're going to hear about Melchizedek if you read the book of Hebrews, because he is an example, some might even say a direct incarnation, even before Jesus was born, of our Lord Jesus. So his name means King of Righteousness. And he is setting a peace between the warring tribes and specifically the battles that Abram had to fight in order to claim God's promise. And so he sets up bread and wine in the land of Salem, the town of Salem, which is also short for Jerusalem. So, like I said, there's a lot of connections here. But let's continue on. He blessed Abram, this is King Melchizedek, which means King of Righteousness, and said, blessed be Abram by God Most High. Now, technically, it is not Yahweh, the God of Israel, mentioned, but it is Elohim Elyon, El Elyon, the great God. And so we don't have the specific name of Yahweh, but we do have Abram and Melchizedek representing the great God of heaven. Blessed be Abram, the great God Most High, maker of heaven and earth. And blessed be God Most High, who has delivered your enemies into your hand. Abram was found to be very powerful as a king. And Abram gave 1/10 or a tithe of everything. This is the first example of the tithe anywhere in the Bible if we go chronologically. And then the king of Sodom said to Abram, give me the persons, but take the goods for yourself. Now remember, the king of Sodom is of the unrighteous kingdom, but the king of righteousness, Melchizedek, blesses Abram. But Abram said to the king of Sodom, I have sworn to Yahweh, God Most High. Here's the connection. King Melchizedek just knows him as El Elyon, but Abram knows him as Yahweh El Elyon, maker of heaven and earth. That is, he would not take a thread or a sandal or a thong or anything of yours, so that you might not say, I have made Abram rich. Now, why is he doing that? Because Abram wants to know that his riches, his value, comes from not inheriting plunder from a war or from any other source, but the blessing that he has given, that the Lord has given, that Yahweh El Elyon, the great God Yahweh, has given him. He doesn't want to be beholden to anybody, even by reputation. I mean, he won the battle, but he wants to make sure that his righteousness, his wealth, his riches come specifically from the Lord. I will take nothing but the young men have eaten, because they've already eaten some of the plunder and stuff. But Abram and his people are going to go home and share the men who went with me. Aner, Echol, and Mamre. These were the other kings and peoples of the kings. Let them take their share. But beyond that, I don't want anything more. And so that is the terms of peace set up by King Melchizedek, the king of righteousness. And so Abram, in this instance, is a man of righteousness. He is not, how should I say, wavering. Now, Abram will waver. We will waver, but the promises of God do not waver. And so in this case, we are to be like Abraham and trust in the promises of God, not in the riches of plunder or anything else that we receive. Now, we might not fight battles, but in the world of finance, we live in a capitalistic system, and that is one with winners and losers. And some might take their share of their plunder if they take over a company or do something that is an inheritance. But what the Lord is teaching us, regardless of whatever system you live in, we should not take our riches from the things of the earth. We should take our riches from the things that are God's. And those things that are God's are the wealth that God has blessed us with and the righteousness specifically that God has given us if we have what? Faith in that. Remember, we already read in Genesis 14 that God is a God of faith, and we are to trust in God. I should say Genesis 13. We are to trust in God and not in our own eyes, not in the plunder of this world. We are to trust that God will lead us and that all of the riches are only given to those who trust in the Lord. And so we are told in this passage, trust in the Lord. And the Lord blessed him by the king of Melchizedek, the king of Salem, the king of righteousness. And Abram was willing to give a tenth of this for this peace treaty to show that he was invested in this life. And so the believer is also encouraged, if not commanded, to strive for that 10% of what we own, to give it over to the Lord. Now, I would say give it over to the Lord. It doesn't necessarily say give it over to the church or a specific ministry, but it says to give it over to God. And so that is why we are called maybe to diversify the specifics, but be specific in what we are given. The ministries of the Lord, whether they be church, and if church is your primary way of expressing that ministry, go there and give your tithe. But it is primarily not to that specific place. It's where one sees the King of righteousness, the King of Salem, the King of peace, where one sees Jesus Christ, who is of the order of Melchizedek. God bless you today. We trust that these continue to be words of encouragement. Take care. God bless. We'll see you next time.